Ascertia products support international standard certifications, which all help to ensure interoperability of products when they're deployed in the field. Ascertia is also a member of the Cloud Signature Consortium, who have their own API or have worked to create an API that helps ensure interoperability between business applications and remote signing service providers. So Ascertia is adding support for eID Easy to SigningHub to further this interoperability to reach providers that aren't currently supporting or are unable to support the Cloud Signature Consortium API. eID Easy has a fantastic way of providing interoperability and the means for these business applications to reach these RSSPs. So this was a natural add for Ascertia and the SigningHub product.
I think from eID Easy side, why we're looking at this partnership and integration with SigningHub is obviously because Ascertia is one of the leading companies in the field of signing documents and electronic signatures. So it makes sense for the qualified trust service providers that we have already integrated to our API to have visibility and exposure to the list of clients that is using SigningHub at the moment, so that their own certificates out there become more useful and more used in everyday business cases and signatures.
The aim of Ascertia's global ecosystem is to connect as many Ascertia products to its customers, to partners, and to as many trust service providers as possible. Our ethos is to enable the ultimate choice of flexibility and deployment. And so eID enables Ascertia SigningHub to expand the number of TSPs that users can sign with, document owners, those that need to sign documents using trust service providers that are local to either the document owner or to the document signer. And there's plenty of selection out there already, but this expands that even further. So if you're in a country where you need to use a provider that's local to you and the document owner isn't, this just furthers that selection, furthers that choice.
I think looking at the type of integrations that SigningHub already has with Cloud Signature Consortium TSPs, then I think it's also important to highlight that not all of the qualified trust service providers out there currently offer support for the CSE implementation. In fact, the majority of the world is still not using this implementation. So using our API, we make a wide range of signing methods and these trust service providers available in Ascertia in SigningHub. And in fact, with our API, and a little bit on the technical difference between how some of the implementation of these trust service providers differs from the CSE, with our API, you can do the integration of the methods without needing to redirect the user to the method. So a lot of the methods allow you to be able to authenticate in the same context where the document and the signature is happening. And it makes for a better user experience for the actual person who needs to sign the document, where they have a more seamless, integrated signing experience with SigningHub. And that's really our aim with implementing this API. So we love the CSC. We offer support for a lot of the methods that are in the CSC, but we see that there's an opportunity here for covering more qualified trust service providers and offering a better user experience.
I think that's a super important point, Joao. I mean, the whole point of eIDAS, EU regulation, and more importantly, qualified digital signatures was that they provided this legal framework across all of the European countries to digitize and provide a legal framework to replace wet or traditional signatures. And if you're being asked to sign a document in a territory, region, geography where your provider isn't available on your signing platform, then that becomes a huge problem for you. So this coming together of the Ascertia SigningHub product and the eID Easy platform is one of those things that actively promotes and furthers support for the use of qualified electronic signatures and its legal standing. So we're super excited to be able to support that and bring that to our customers.
If you think about the legal framework, then this legal framework has been there from 2016. But if you look at actual adoption on the ground, it's still lagging very much behind for a number of reasons. But my contention And of course, we our company is based in Estonia, where people have been doing qualified signatures for ages. But our contention is that it comes down to the user experience. And if the user experience and the deployment of these methods isn't there, then you're just basically having to force people from a legal point of view, and that's not good. So this is why we focus so heavily on making sure that the integration we do with platforms like SigningHub is focused on providing the best possible customer experience by using the local methods that people already have, and also by making sure that on the authentication side, the user doesn't have to do too many redirects and everything can happen in context. Therefore, like you mentioned, Mike, further enhancing the whole point of eIDs and these types of qualified signatures.
It's super important that this is compliant to the standards, it has legal standing, but you're right, Joao, it has to be usable. There's so many of us in the technical world take it for granted. We know what's happening and why we're getting presented with a particular dialogue, and we have patience to sit there whilst we get the waiting dialogue, etc., etc. But forgetting that once this is out there in the field, it's in the hands of your average citizen who are making a mortgage application, they're applying for a loan, they're maybe buying a home or a car. So they're not going to have the technical wherewithal, not doing anybody down here, but this needs to be usable in the hands of your average person. So absolutely, super slick user experience, connecting people with their authentication providers, their signing providers. And when people see the integration we've done, the hard work on both the SigningHub and the eID Easy side, hopefully people will see how easy it's going to be to sign documents and transact with each other.
The whole point of an aggregator like eID Easy is to take the hard work of talking to the multiple authentication mechanisms and qualified trust service providers out there. Each of them have little nuances which make it very complicated for someone to take on the workload of integrating with all of them. And this is basically why we exist. Typically, you would be able to start a process with potentially an electronic identity that a lot of countries started deploying, especially since the pandemic. These can come either from national governments at the national level, like is the case in Portugal, for example, with the national government implementing the strong authentication there. It can be done through private companies that have kind of a push from the government side to use these solutions, like is the case, for example, in Belgium with It's Me. And those are just kind of the beginning, what we see as a trend in a lot of electronic identities being deployed, especially now with eIDAS2 and the wallets. But we also offer support for different types of authentication mechanisms, which some would call perhaps a little bit more old school, which are the national IDs that come with a chip embedded, that have the signings, that have the certificate embedded in the chip. So these type of smart cards with a USB card reader are also a way to authenticate. And then you have the sort of cloud-based certificates, where either you could have an onboarding with a qualified trust service provider that gives you a one-shot certificate, or you can have like your long-term certificate that is stored somewhere and then you access it at the moment of signing. So these are just some of the type of authentication mechanisms that we have already integrated with our API. And obviously we have an extensive roadmap where we keep adding more and more methods to the platform.
Coming from the Ascertia SigningHub side, eID Easy makes it super simple for us to integrate and reach all these different territories and all of these different providers. As you mentioned, you've got everything from national identity cards, mobile-based smart credential schemes, USB token, SMS signing, national IDPs. There's so many there that a business application could potentially leverage. SigningHub has support for a vast array of authentication mechanisms already. We try to standardize wherever possible. So SAML, OpenIDC Connect, just to name a few. But when you start reaching each and every country in Europe and then stepping beyond that, you do run into some weird and wonderful things that you couldn't hope to support. So eID Easy makes it super easy for us to standardize upon one API. eID Easy have a hard time. They're doing a lot of work here as the broker in the middle, but that makes it a good partnership for us to be able to leverage. We're able to reach all of these different providers. eID Easy is able to leverage the ease of use of the signing platform, where we can jointly promote and further the support for qualified electronic signatures. I think it's worth also adding some of the complexity when you get down to the signer's job, what those signing providers are doing. So some in the signing world, again, getting a little bit technical, you've got a document that flows into a business application like SigningHub. You've then got a choice where the entire document is sent to the end user to sign, and it's rendered on their mobile device. And that might be due to local legislation or other legal and technical requirements. So you can see the document on your handset as you're about to sign it, which is great from a what you see is what you sign standpoint, because on your mobile device, you're seeing the document. But if you're an enterprise or provider where there are security concerns, you might not want the document to leave the signing application. So there's a bit of a negative there.
Obviously we're talking of qualified signatures for most cases, right? And these come with certain compliance requirements from the issuer of the certificate. So if you want to just make a little distinction between, what a qualified signature is and what an advanced identity-based signature is, then essentially you're outsourcing the liability if something goes wrong to the qualified trust service provider. And this is where, Mike, you mentioned it very well, that for their own compliance, they want to make sure that nothing wrong is happening at the moment of signing the document. So either they certify the flow where the user actually is aware of what is being signed, or they want to make sure that using their own mobile application, the document gets sent in a way that the user gets to see the document on their phone, on their smartphone, before they actually sign it. Now, what we're doing with SigningHub, because SigningHub has a long experience with working with qualified trust service providers, is that we're trying to make sure that the documents never have to leave SigningHub for the signing moment. And this has to come with the process of making sure that the compliance is met when talking to the qualified trust service providers. And that's definitely something that is going to come when we go live, and will continue to increase as the coverage of methods also increases.
This is all about flexibility. Absolutely, there's a compliance standpoint, but flexibility plays a huge part here. Document owners and document signers need to be able to sign with the right credentials from the right provider, ultimately. So Ascertia SigningHub, in conjunction with eID Easy, offers and delivers a vast amount of flexibility to both those that need to share documents to collect signatures, and those that need to sign to approve something, or to sign up to a legal agreement, sign up to a particular service. So as a starting point, Ascertia SigningHub is going to start with support for signing documents using hash-based signing. So this means that we'll use or continue to use the SigningHub existing model, where from a sovereign standpoint, documents that need to be signed stay within the SigningHub environment. They stay within a deployment of the SigningHub product, giving you control from a security standpoint. So they will remain within an enterprise where SigningHub's deployed, or they would remain in a trust service provider, or within a country, retaining that security element. And only the hash of the document that needs to be signed is sent to the remote signing provider. So you are kind of giving the document owner or the enterprise TSP control of the document. It never leaves the country. And what we'll do, given that eID Easy has this wonderful array of providers that support both hash-based signing and full document signing, as Joao mentioned, that document needs to be, in some cases, sent to the user's mobile device from a regulatory standpoint. We're going to be evaluating that and looking to add it to the SigningHub roadmap as and when we need to support those territories and those users where it's critically important that the document has to be on their mobile device.
eID Easy side, the mission of our company is to make qualified signatures an everyday affair, so that people will stop doing this sort of funny scribble on a PDF and actually move to identity-based signatures, or signatures that are fully compliant with ADAS. So I think why this is important, why this integration is important, has to do with something that Mike already mentioned, which is flexibility, in that sense that we provide access to local methods that people already use every day, where they don't have to be onboarded into a third-party app for a different way of getting the qualified certificates, therefore reducing the friction. Because if you're operating in a geography where someone is already using this type of authentication or signature method, then they're aware of what the user experience looks like. So less friction. And then the last aspect, which Mike, you already talked about, is the full security and full compliance, so that you can be sure that you're getting a signature that you can take with you and be fully secure and full compliant